Hey everyone, Rob here, and I have updates on the situation that's going on in Iceland. I know it's been a little while since I've did an update, but really there hasn't been too much going on to warrant just flooding you with information. But recently, I've gathered all of the latest information for you so that you have this one-stop shop of info for the Grindavik Blue Lagoon region. Now, if we take a look at some of this, sort of graphs that the meteorological agency has put out, the volume of magma under Svartsengi continues to increase, which could end up with a new magma flow and even an eruption. An eruption, again, can start with very short notice, even less than 30 minutes. And so they're thinking that that's the time frame. An eruption is most likely to occur in the area between Stora Skogfelt and Hagafelt, which we've covered extensively previously. It is just about 3 kilometers from the Blue Lagoon, so they say. It looks a little bit closer. Now, the latest changes are that it assigns more magma needs to accumulate under Svartsengi than it has previously. As we can see in the graph here, what we're looking at is the different the different events that occurred. We have the purple one here. It corresponds to the purple at the top here, and that shows you the earthquake series that occurred that destroyed a lot of Grindavik, in fact, and it sort of kicked off this whole series that we're seeing. And then you can follow along through the dates to see the different areas. The stars signify an eruption that occurred. So you can see here the red line, we have another square. So that was sort of this magma flowing in another direction. There was a strong earthquake series. I wouldn't say huge in magnitude, but enough to warrant evacuating the town of Grindavik, evacuating the Blue Lagoon, and causing alarm bells going off everywhere. We can see here that the land rise and the buildup decreased after that. It sort of shifted into another area, and then, of course, continuing at the same rate. Now, we have passed the previous eruption that occurred back in February. We can see this is this sort of yellowish, some would argue a yellow-orangey kind of color. We're going to run out of colors, I think, soon on this graph, so I don't know what they're going to do about that, but we have now surpassed that buildup, but we're still looking at not hitting the buildup that we have seen in previous eruptions. So that's what they mean by perhaps now it needs a little bit more power, a little bit more pressure to trigger an eruption this time around. Now, as the weather in Iceland, of course, is very volatile, the monitoring systems of the meteorological agency, that decreases. And we've had a lot of wind and sort of storms over the past little while. And so sometimes metrics are not 100% accurate. And that's a bit concerning for the people staying in the Blue Lagoon, because if it's not, if it's a really windy night and it happens to be the eruption night and all of the monitoring stations are not accurate, it's not really a good thing. So that's something to keep in mind if you're in the area. It seemed to go really, really well evacuating the Blue Lagoon, the hotels, Grindavik. All of the alarm and the sirens were going off, and it seemed like it took between 30 minutes to 1 hour to get everyone out, which seemed to be more than enough time for this type of eruption. Now, again, it's not going to be an explosive eruption, but there's nothing that says for sure that it will not be underneath the Blue Lagoon. If we took a look at some of the graphs here, we can see the sort of seismic activity that's been going on in the region. Use Grindavik here, and what we're seeing is the Blue Lagoon's off to the side here. These black lines are actually showing the outer limits of the sort of valleys that have formed a connection with the magma flow and the eruption, of course, that's occurred after that. So that's sort of the limit of where it is. You can see it does extend over into the sea, but it goes all the way down and up, and so that's why the Blue Lagoon is on such a warning, because there's so much in this area. But let's go back to this graph here. Now, according to the latest deformation measurements and satellite data that's coming out, magma accumulation under Svartsengi continues at a similar rate as before the magma flow on March 2nd. Model calculations based on that data confirm that the magma accumulation under the area is at the same place and depth as before. So you can see this, it's just a little bit above the previous one there. Now, in connection with the eruptions on January 14th and February 8th, and the magma flow on March 2nd, it has been shown in all cases that the total volume in the magma chamber under Svartsengi had to reach about 10 million cubic meters before magma flows into the Sundhnúks crater series. Now, the possible timing of the next eruption has been based on calculating the amount of magma that flows from that chamber in under Svartsengi into the Sundhnúks crater series each time, and then how many days it will take to accumulate again in a comparable amount of magma under Svartsengi. So that's all of this type of information on behind the scenes of what they are looking at doing. Now, in the magma flow on March 2nd, and so that's this red line, this red box that we're seeing here, it's estimated that about 1.3 million cubics of magma moved from the magma sort of area underneath Svartsengi into the Sundhnúks crater series, which is much less than in previous flows in the last few months. And since then, it is estimated about 4 million or so has been added under Svartsengi, but there's been no eruption since then that would have made news. So now this indicates that there have been some change in the channel that the magma has traveled under this Sundhnúks crater series. In light of all of this, there's now, according to the meteorological agency, this is a quote, more uncertainty than before about how much magma must accumulate under Svartsengi to trigger a new magma flow and even an eruption. This pattern that we were seeing of, the first one, of course, the easiest, and with each one, they assumed it was going to be easier and easier, but now something has changed here. We had a magma flow, but it didn't break through the surface. So, not going to be 100% on where everything is. There's more uncertainty than before, of course, if and when there's going to be an eruption. But they do note that in the future there's the highest probability that the magma will flow into the Sundhnúks crater series, and then a possible eruption in the area between Stora Skogafell and Hagafell. And if we take a look at that's some of these mountains in this area. Basically all these lines are pointing in the direction of where this is all going to be going on. Again, right off to the side of the Blue Lagoon. Now, if magma were to look somewhere else than the way it has, historically over these past couple of series, for the example, west toward Eldvorp or south of Thorbjörn, the precursor to a possible eruption in the area would be very large, intense earthquakes and deformation that would be clearly visible on measuring instruments and satellite imagery. So there's no signs of that at this point. And basically what all of that means is, what is the likelihood of it crossing over this road that we're seeing here, this red line that's going sort of up and down? What's the likelihood of magma actually popping up over in this area? And they say less likely. And in the event that that's going to happen, there will be, quite a lot of precursor events before that happens. So quite a few small earthquakes, less than 1.5 magnitude, have been recorded northwest of Grindavik in the last few days. We can see here, this is all the ones, and red to blue shows you the colors based on days, as you can see in the chart. And the activity is mostly located in this sort of area where the boundaries of the sort of chambers are, if you will. So that's one of the big things. Now, there's a lot of things coming out of the news. There's another very cryptic looking graph. There's another thing coming out of the news. Let me just sort of make this a little bit more accessible for you. Just try and size this in. There we go. See if we can. Yeah, that's probably good enough. So in the news, there's a lot about when is this all going to end. A lot of people are saying it's in the summer. Volcanologists and scientists are kind of saying it's going to be in the summertime because it's based on this information. And they're also looking at, this graph here is how long before it basically hits zero. I mean, it's not going to continue forever. That's just what everyone agrees on. So the meteorological agency, they decided that, of course, while the accumulation of magma under Svartsengi continues, there's always going to be a possibility of another magma flow, and then it's going to lead to an eruption. Now, before, as we said, it was possible to kind of predict the timing of the end of the ongoing sequence of events associated with all of this magma accumulation under Svartsengi, and clear signs must be seen that the flow of magma into this so-called accumulation area has decreased significantly between the last couple events. So the meteorological agency's interpretation of all of this available data shows no clear signs that the trend is that it's going to stop in the near future. Data and model calculations show that the amount of magma flowing into the sort of collected area under Svartsengi each day has remained consistent during the last 3 events. The amount added has been around 400,000 cubic meters per day, which is crazy to think about. And it has not changed between the 3 events that have occurred since the beginning of the year. 2024 is what we're at. There are the eruptions on January 14th and February 8th, along with the mega flow on, March 2nd, of course, that we are very well aware of. Now, again, based on all of the available data on the constant amount of magma that accumulates under Svartsengi each day, it's too early to predict the end of the sequence of events that began at the end of October last year. So it's contradicting, or I guess going against a little bit, what scientists are saying. As they say, it's way too early to be talking about when is this over. So I think it's we have to listen to the meteorological agency on this. And they say, in addition to all of this, it's important to note that between 2020 and 2022, there were 4 periods with breaks of varying lengths where magma accumulation was measured under Svartsengi. Almost 16 months passed before all of this that's still ongoing resumed at the end of October 2023. Unfortunately, there's still considerable uncertainty as to when it can be said with complete certainty that this chapter of volcanic and seismic activities and everything going on in the Reykjanes Peninsula around Grindavik is going to come to an end. And I know that it's not good news for the people of Grindavik, the Blue Lagoon. Everyone is on edge on what's going on, but that's just the facts, and you can't really argue with facts and science at this point. So that's the latest updates. Now, if you really want to jump into the news, we can take a look at some of the earthquake data. You can see, again, if we zoom on in to the Grindavik region, and we can take a look at the map here, we see there is a lot of seismic activity still occurring, but it's all relatively small. Plus, if it's a windy day, that affects everything, and it makes it look sometimes a little bit worse than if it wasn't. So, but you can see here, based on the previous ones, if you've been following this channel, we need a little bit more seismic activity than this in order to really start seeing something. But Blue Lagoon's in here under all these dots somewhere, and this area is very volatile. So if you're in the area, be safe and just be mindful of evacuations that can occur at a moment's notice. So that's all of the updates for the past week, 2 weeks. I forget how long it's been since I've posted. Yeah, maybe not 2 weeks, but there it is. And be sure to stay tuned, because if anything else pops up, I'll be sure to collect all that and present it to you in a way that's hopefully very informative and not too boring and not too technical for those that are brand new to this. So that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching.